Hi there, thanks for joining. Today we take a look at how to paint golden objects. So I must have some gold lying about here in this place. Of course, it's near the window that cannot be locked. And you immediately see that when I turn it like this, there are a lot of different things happening because the color is very reflective. So for instance, now you see some dark spots reflected in the gold. And that's just the studio, the camera in front of me, that's reflected in the gold. And when I turn it like this, it becomes very bright, and that is because of the lamp that shines at my ceiling. So then it gets very white. Another example, then you get the idea, but here I have a bag with all this red color in it. And then you see, if you look at that gold, it is red. With the eyedropper tool I've selected a lot of different colors that I saw in these golden, in these pictures with these golden objects. You encounter a lot of different kind of yellow colors, green colors, brown colors, very dark colors, gray colors. So you see it's very dependent on the lighting conditions and the surrounding colors and that kind of stuff. So, and that's always the case with all objects. I look this way because of the lighting conditions, because when I turn off the light, then I look different, you see? Then I have more yellow skin tone, at least that's on this monitor. But you see, that has a lot of effect, and the same goes for that gold. Where is it? Oh! Oh! Ah! So in the painting demo, I'll show you how you can approach this. It's always the same for every subject. We always, as artists, try to look at the world as though it is flat. We look at a certain spot and we say, what kind of form is this? What kind of colors does it contain? And how light and dark is it? And also how saturated is it at this spot? But for that kind of things, look at the color mixing videos. But you also have to be kind of brave to constantly try to look if you're judging things in the correct way. You can very easily be tricked. Sometimes a color is way lighter than you think, sometimes a color is way darker than you think, sometimes it's less saturated than you think. And especially if you're just beginning with painting, check yourself a lot. So you mix a color, you check it with the reality or with your photograph. And I have some tips on how to do that shortly. But just by checking yourself constantly in the beginning and trying to get as close as you can to that source color, that will make you improve in painting. And after a while you get used to being fooled. It sounds crazy, but that's the way it is. So I've built quite some experience and I make mistakes every day, so there's no problem with that. But I know, for instance, now that if I look at a dark area and I see a lighter part, then chances are that I will exaggerate that. So I'll keep that in mind beforehand. So with mixing, I already think, okay, let's make it not too light already. And then I compare as well, I just check myself. So nowadays I get to the source color quicker because I know these pitfalls. That's a matter of building experience. And then again, I still make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, happy little accidents. But let's continue, let's go paint. So for this example, I'm gonna photograph one of my golden bars. So this is a very specific situation, of course, but the things that I'm gonna show you, you can apply in other situations as well. So that's, of course, what we're here for. And you can already tell in the sketching phase, I've already painted in some of these forms that I see. I just put lines where I see, there's one form and there's another form, so I indicate them a little bit with lines. And now I can focus on color planes, because I'm gonna start painting. Something that's very handy is if you have a piece of paper, of old paper, just tear a piece of that paper, you can use it as a test strip. So, now, for instance, if I want to mix this color, try to see what color this mainly is, because there are some shifts in it, but what main color do we see? And it's very hard to tell, isn't it? So, in a case like that, you can take a piece of cardboard and just cut out a little square. And now I have a cardboard with a square and I can put that in front of the photograph, and now the color that I want to focus on gets isolated. And that helps a lot. Now I see, it's a brownish red color. So I'll just grab some red. It might not be a bad idea just to put in some burnt umber. It's a shortcut. And then I can put a little bit of that paint on the test paper and I hold it near it, and you see it's good enough for this part. You can easily compare. Now I got fairly close in one go, but it is no problem if that isn't the case. That's how you learn. So you see, oh, it doesn't look right. What is my color lacking when I compare it to that color? So now I just paint this in. And of course you can as well pre-mix some colors. And here I see a slight variation. There it gets more orange. So I'll add just a little bit more yellow. And again, you can check like this. You see? That's quite alright. So more yellow here for this part. And now then we see that here it gets more brown. So I'll leave that open. Now I go to that more red color again, the brownish red, and here is, well, you don't see the edge here between the two forms, but that's great. On the photograph we don't see that edge either, so up. There we see a dark spot. Well, that's a reflection of this dark spot on the bottle. Oh, I haven't painted it on the bottle, so I will do that shortly now. So I'll add it here, so because otherwise this doesn't make sense, of course. So it's just a reflection of that thing. You see? Now it looks strange. Don't mind. This doesn't look like gold at all, but that is because we don't have all the other surrounding colors. Now that color here, that dark color here, that's a little bit more brown, don't you think? So I'll grab a little bit more of that red again. Pyrolle red, by the way, in this case. But there are other ways to come to the same result, so that's always the case. I'm gonna test again. It isn't that bad. Maybe it's slightly too dark, but for the shadow here, the shadow area here, it is great. So I put it in there already. And this is just that the bend of that pot, of that jar, you see it reflected in the gold. Okay, now we need to make it slightly lighter, so I'll try to add a little bit of yellow. Because you can make colors lighter with white, but also with yellow, and in some cases it's better to make it lighter with yellow. If in this case, for instance, you clearly see that's more a color like this. And here we have something more like this, and gradually here we have a little bit more red. So we go like this. Here it gets slightly darker where it turns away, you see. So I'm gonna look. How dark is that? Well, let's add a slight touch of ultramarine blue. And we get a nice dark color. Oops. And let's add that as well. So, you see, and I look at the form of that dark color, and that's something like this. And then it goes over here to the top. But here we see another very, this is the edge that is bending. And then we see a kind of a reasonably orangey color. Let's take some pyrolle red again and add more yellow. Then we get orange, of course. And now let's check if this is the kind of right orange. So you see, it's not that bad. It is a little bit too vivid, so the saturation is too high. So I add a slight touch of blue. That's the third primary, because here I only had, in fact, I had magenta, yellow and magenta and yellow, because pyrolle red is a color theoretically that contains magenta and yellow contains yellow. And well, now I add some of the blue, the ultramarine blue, so then the color gets more dull, you see? And there we go, it's more dull, and now it's right. So let's draw that color in. It's kind of drawing what we do now, so you see, so here it goes, and then it goes over all the way up till here, I think, so like this. Oh, and I will make a transitional color between these two, so I'll grab this color that I previously used and blend these two together so that they blend nicely. Now on top of the gold bar, because this is the top plane, there we see this color reflected of the bottle, so I just grab that here as well and add it in, and it goes straight downwards. Just like this. So, in reality, now you see an edge here that shouldn't be there, but that is my sketch edge, because the paint doesn't cover that well, the first layer. But yeah, I could fix that with another layer, of course, but now let's just move on. Then we see a slightly darker color at the edge of the edge here, of brownish red again, I think, so like this. This part here, you see here, this part, it's a form like this. Maybe I can do it with the software, but that's the form that I see. And now the question is, what color is it? Well, I can use a little bit of yellow ochre, because I think yellow ochre is already quite close to that color, you see, and that's right, but it's a little bit too vivid. Maybe if I add a slight a touch of ultramarine as well, then it gets more greenish, but also less vivid. Yellow ochre wasn't that bad, so I'll blend it a little bit, and then I'm gonna look how far do I have to take this. There we go. I see a little bit of that color here as well, so maybe it even gets a little bit lighter, but well, let's put it over here and put it over here. That's not that big of a difference, so I just add it in. There we go. Now this color, the color on top of the gold bar. It's a reasonably solid color, you see, so it doesn't change that much. Apart from the inscriptions that are on top, but I'm not gonna paint the inscriptions. Because this is a bigger color plane, it's easier for me to mix it with the palette knife, and that has another benefit as well that I will show you. Maybe I can take that yellow ochre again as a base color, you see, so something like this. Now I can, you can see again that this color is too vivid. There are several things that I can do, but I could try to add a little bit of burnt umber. Don't know why exactly, but that is the feeling that I get when I look at it. So I'll add that, and then we try again. That's not that bad, you see? A slight touch of white will dull it down as well. Well, this part is easy because it's just a big color plane, so nothing special. Now, and in this stage, it looks very, very weird, you see? So in this stage, a lot of people give up and throw away their painting. Don't do that, please, because we're not finished yet. Just go on and look what happens. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but we're gonna try at least. Colors have to work together to show the total picture. We're not there yet, and that's no problem. So let's look at this color. What kind of strange color is that? So I'm not sure. So let's put that piece of paper on top of it again. Do you see that? It's a brown kind of color. Is it similar to this color? No, this color is a little bit too greenish. But maybe when I add a little bit of red, now I compare, you see, hey, now we're there. The color changes. What kind of color do we see here? It looks to me, it looks a little bit greenish, but is that really the case? Ah, yes, it is a little bit the case, and it looks a little bit similar to this one, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, these two colors. So, if I take this color and I add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of ultramarine blue, could also use phthalo, that's fun. Phthalo is a very vivid pigment, so watch out. See, ooh, there we go already. So here we go, green. Yep, that's very nice. And for here, it's nice as well. Okay, and so I look for the green planes, so to speak. So I see it a little bit around here, around this color there. So, and then it goes a little bit like this. Oh, there's a little yellow part that I still have to do, but something like this. And then I see something like this. It's just the form of that color that I try to follow. Then I see something like this. Here darker shapes, darker colors. But over here it gets that more green and maybe slightly darker. Yeah, slightly darker. So here, you see? So, whoop. Now there we go, like this. Here, this shape is kind of good, but there it ends already. Then we get that darker shape. Now I go to that color, the more brownish color. And well, we see it over here, for instance, also thin line. And now, of course, these colors change a little bit at several spots, but we don't have to do every minor detail. So here I fill in this color first, and maybe I want to add a little bit more yellow, wet in wet, but at this stage I just fill in big plane. So, and then we go over here, it goes like this a little bit, and it changes color there, I see that, but let us do this first. So, now let's blend it a little bit with that green color, so I just drop it in like this, so no hard edges, no hard feelings, no hard edges. So, there we go. Then, I already said, here it gets a little bit more yellowish. Then I grab a little bit of that yellow ochre, so you can make that color slightly lighter and more yellow. For here a small part and here. So you see, I lighten it up a little bit with that yellow ochre. A little bit, to give it a bit of a shiny feel. And here I see more of that yellow ochre color. So let's drop it in, and again I blend it with the surrounding color there, so there we go. I just saw that I needed to drop in a little bit of that color here as well, around that orange edge. So, something like this. It's very scary to paint, to do these paintings. You only know if it's gonna work if it's finished, or at least has one layer all over it. Now we get something darker there, so I'll just drop in a little bit of ultramarine, and I grab some of this mixture here, and I'm gonna check what have we got now. I just do something and I don't know if it is correct. Well, it's not that bad. So then I just add it in here, and then as well here we go upwards and it gets a little bit more brownish. So I'll add more. I'll add a little bit of burnt umber. There, so there we go. Then we get a transitional phase here between, because here is lighter, there is darker, so then we have this. Well, the same thing I can do for the colors over here. So here we see a darker part. Oh, it's a little bit more brown, little bit more burnt umber. Here it goes a little bit like this. And I blend it a little bit with the color that I already had on the canvas. Now, there we go. You see all slight alterations in color. But it is a good exercise for, following the colors. What are the colors doing? Well, as well, here on top is a very dark part. It's nice to do, so here we go. You see, so it isn't black, it contains color. Well, and then we go over here. And here it gets slightly lighter again. So I just mix the colors that I have on my palette. It can contain slightly more brown. Then we easily merge them together, like that. So there we go, and this is a little bit lighter, so I'll add a little bit more of the yellow ochre again. Well, of course, because it is fake gold, there's a kind of a plastic wrap around. And well, that's that form that we see there, but that doesn't matter. So like this. Oh, and here I'll drop in a little bit of red in the yellow ochre, and I'll restore this line a little bit because I've damaged it a little bit. And I did like that line. Now let's make a color for this for the front plane. So again, I can use yellow ochre in this case, I think, but what do you see if you compare this yellow ochre with this bar of gold? It is not yellow enough. You see, it lacks yellow. So, whoop, there we go. Yellow is quite all right. That's the first step. That's quite all right. But now it's lacking something else again. You see? And that's a little touch of blue. So there we go. A little touch of ultramarine. And just be careful because it will alter the color very quickly. Now let's take a nice big brush. This is the edge, and I'm gonna adjust the edge later on. But at this stage, I just grab everything together. And now I'll grab that slightly darker color, that slightly more greenish color. I'm not gonna blend too much at this stage. Unless, oh, here for instance, I can do it already a little bit, but here I want to leave it a little bit. And now I've covered everything, I can start rubbing it in a little bit to give it more of that feel as if this is more towards us. So there we go. Oops, I guess like this. So top, I have to connect the top plane with that strange color here. So, and that is a little bit, so I'll make the in-between color. So this I can still make slightly darker. Now we drop in a very light color with white as well this time. And here is a very light color, bam. You see, we're getting closer and closer, I guess, I hope. This is more of an orange kind of line that I see again, so a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, and then I'll put an orange line over here. Now, then we have some, yeah, of course, we have that lighter yellow color here as well at the edge here. Small part. Something like this, I guess. And then we go over here. Here it is reasonably same kind of color. And now it's time to grab a slightly smaller brush. Here we have quite some very light parts, but again it contains yellow, so and then we see some quite dark parts, so more orange brown kind of color, you see, like here. So there in the edge, and then going upward here at this edge, in between these colors. At this moment I see that the cast shadow is a little bit too light of that I'll just, because now I'm, now that I've started, I want to finish it, of course. I already told you I had forgotten to do the foreground, and it's all a bit of, it's the photograph taken on my palette, so quite messy as usual with paint spots and things like that. So I'll just indicate it a little bit. Just give it some general color again. Now, if you want to try for yourself with the same picture, that's no problem. I'll put the link in the description to the photograph. Made the photograph myself, so no copyright. And you're welcome to try. Because watching someone do it is totally different than doing it yourself. Huh? It is always important, if you want to learn, to jump into it, to try and dare to do it. Only that way can we really learn something. It's through experience it ourselves. Oops, here it's slightly darker. Well, I can clearly see that I'm getting a little bit tired, so better stop now. I think you get the general idea.